that's my sort of way to express my respect and understanding to African fabric and African history. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. And I didn't work today because this weekend there was a long weekend. It's finishing, so I will work tomorrow. But on Saturday I went to Yokohama to watch a film because there was a film festival organized by JICA Yokohama, and there was one film. The title was Wax Print, and this was about African fabric, its history, and what it means to African people or people who have roots to Africa. So the film started to talk about history of African fabric. So the fabric is not originally from Africa, and it started from Java Island in Indonesia. They did a wax technique. Wax is like a candle, and to dye the fabric first they used the wax, but they did by their hands, and it took long time, even for 6 months, to finish one fabric, one material. So it wasn't efficient to produce a lot, and the people from Netherlands came to colonize Indonesia, and they found the wax print. At the moment that was called batik, and I think I talked to someone who was in Malaysia, who was working in Malaysia for 2 years, and she said still the batik technique exists in Malaysia, so I think they still call it batik. And the people from Netherlands, they came to Indonesia and they found the technique, and they was impressed by the technique, so they took that technique to their country, and they copied and imitated the technique first, and they even changed and made it possible to produce a large size production by making it machinized and make it the process easier to produce more. And that was initiated to target to European market, to sell those fabric to European market, and they tried to sell those batik fabrics, but the European people didn't like it. So that's why the people in Netherlands, so the specifically there was a production, there was fabric manufacturer who wanted to sell those fabric in Europe, but they failed. So they come up with the idea of selling those fabric in Africa, because they were in Africa to colonize Africa as well. And then they came to they had connection because there were already missionaries there in Africa, and they went to Nigeria, and there was a woman who was called Nana, and she was like a leader of women there, and the manufacturer from Netherlands talked to Nana, and they discussed what kind of patterns the African people will like, and they made a lot of patterns, like hundreds of patterns, to sell those fabric in Africa. And that went very successful. Nana became very rich, and now the pattern became a kind of symbol and identity for African people. And even it started from Nigeria, or I guess from West Africa, because there were ports there. So the people from Netherlands carry the fabric to through the ports in West Africa, and it spread to whole African continent and even to Madagascar, because I saw a lot of African fabric in Madagascar as well, and people just wear it. But the difference is the Malagasy people don't really made a customized cloth. They make it, but it's for special occasions. And I think people in African continent, they wear those customized clothes in a daily basis. And I found it slightly different. And also the patterns I see in Madagascar are kind of different from the patterns I see in other African nations. But I think there are some patterns the Malagasy people like and use frequently, and also it depends on regions. And I think that's the same in African continent. I mean, it depends on region and areas and countries. There are some certain patterns that people in that area like more. And I sometimes wear, I mean, not sometimes, like frequently wear those African fabrics. So here are some examples of goods I have that I got in Africa. For example, this is the wallet I got in Sainte Marie. Sainte Marie is an island in Madagascar where we can see whales in summer season. I mean, it's summer season in the northern hemisphere, so it's from June to September. And this is a bag I got in Tamashina, my city, Madagascar, but I saw the same one in the capital, Antananarivo. So I think that's a good brand in Madagascar. And this one is a laptop cover, laptop case that I got in the film festival. There are some small shops there, and this is from Senegal. I've never seen this pattern in Madagascar, by the way. And this one, this is a paleo that I got in Nusi Iranja, which is one of the islands near Nushibé in Madagascar. Nushibé is very touristic. You can find Italian tourists, French tourists, and some Spanish tourists. And maybe that was expensive. This one was expensive than normal price, but that was my final trip vacation, so I just got it and I like it. And this is not African fabric, but this made of raffia. Raffia is a kind of plant. I think it's tropical plant, and the quality of raffia in Madagascar is almost the #1 in the world. So, and it's very cheap. So this is a present from my friend in my city. She is still in Tamashina and working at school. Also, I have this hairband that I got from my friend in Tamashina. She is one of my close friends in Madagascar. And I got another hairband which is a different pattern. And this is from Senegal, but I saw the same fabric in Madagascar. And this is from Marawi. I met some of my friends who did a training together in Fukushima, and one of them, he went to Marawi and he worked with a local women's group who create those kind of things. So he gave me, and it's really cute. It's giraffe. Giraffe doesn't exist in Madagascar, by the way. And this is a kind of pot kind of thing that we can put like cosmetics or like small stuffs in my room, and I like the color and I like the pattern. My friend gave me, and she gave like 3 sets of this, and she got it in a local market, or it was maybe a like weekend market in Tamashina. The film concluded that it's very cynical and very complicated, because now the African fabric and wax print is kind of a symbol or the identity of African people, but it's originally from Asia, Indonesia, Southeast Asia, and the colonizers, the Dutch, took those print and brought back to Europe, and they brought those patterns to Africa, and they were the colonizers. So now the African people use the thing that colonizers brought to them as a symbol of their identity. So it's very complex, and it's emotional. And I'm not from Africa. I've just been there for 2 years. I was there, I happened to there because even I chose Latin America at first. But I wear those clothes, and I like the African patterns and African fabric, and that's my sort of way to express my respect and understanding to African fabric and African history, and also my interest in knowing more about Africa. And Africa is huge, and so I don't want to overgeneralize, and also I don't want to call the African continent just Africa, because it's more diverse, and some people in Madagascar don't identify themselves as African, because Malagasy and Malagasy culture is very different from other African countries, and even like West Africa, East Africa, like Maghrebs and South Africa are super different.